Hi, this is Tom Jacobs from tdjacobs.com and also healingsuicide.com. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, also a channel and an energy worker. And this video is about, why focus on Pluto? Why Pluto work matters? Why healing Pluto issues matters? I just want to give you an overview of this. And I am promoting the Pluto Healing Intensive, 4 days from September 26th to 29th, 2019 in Sedona, Arizona. As of this recording on June 4th, 3 spots are open of the 6. So you can check that out. It's got its own page on my website at tdjacobs.com if you're interested in this. I also have another short video called What to Expect at the Pluto Healing Intensive that just gives you an overview of the modalities and tools that I use. Also, just one note, this black thing here, it's the Death Star. It's a new microphone setup. I'm trying to get used to it. I'm trying to get used to it. So this is the first video with it. If I hit the table, it'll bounce, it'll wiggle. So try not to hit the table. Anyway, so in evolutionary astrology, there are now a handful of conceptions of Pluto. Now there are 3. Jeffrey Wolf Green and Stephen Forrest each developed around the same time in the mid to late 70s, and then publishing their books in the early to mid 80s. About Pluto and the intentions of the soul for the human lifetime, and the wounding of the soul. These are just they're 2 different takes. Green will say intentions, Forrest will say wounding, and they have a complex story. I'm not trying to boil it down to one word and think that's enough. It's reductive, but the basic idea is I've taken it. I'm doing a 3rd stream. I'm taking it in a different direction, and I think about Pluto as, in the natal chart, as the empowerment journey that the soul sets out for the human. So it does involve the intentions, and it does involve the wounding and pain that's associated in evolutionary astrology with Pluto. And the idea is that your soul knows love. It is divine consciousness. It is a portion of all that is. And all the souls together comprise divine consciousness or divine intelligence or goddess, God energy. So your portion of soul, in my view, can't be wounded. But in your emotional body, you can, over many lifetimes, carry wounding. So the intentions of the soul and the wounding are wrapped up with Plutonian experience. But for me, it's that the soul intends that the human learn how to go from fear and pain and sorrow and anger and all the kind of low frequencies into love. So Pluto in the chart represents 2 things for me simultaneously. What the person must do to make life feel meaningful, and then what will come up from the unconscious when that happens. So any shilt, I was going to say game or shilt. Guilt, shame, anger, depressiveness, sorrow, despair, suicidal thoughts like anger, rage, hopelessness, existential problems, why bother, is life worth living, all these kinds of things. So you have to do it to feel strong and confident and to feel like life is worth living. So you're drawn to do it. There's a deep unconscious pull for you to do your Pluto, wherever it is, house, sign, aspect, direct, retrograde, whatever. And you're going to stir the negatives when you approach it. So as it turns out, most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid triggering the unconscious pain and fear. Now, they might not know what it is. Again, it's unconscious. All Pluto stuff starts with the unconscious. But they'll have a sense of getting a little anxious here or nervous here, so I'll step away from that, like a certain kind of dynamic situation or choice. So they don't know what it is. It's in the unconscious. But they'll feel one of those feelings come up, and they'll steer themselves away from it. That's what most of us do. So the way that I work with Pluto is, you'll have heard this from other astrologers too. You gotta talk about it. My idea of doing the shadow work, facing the shadow, bringing love, which is light, to shadow, to shame, guilt, shame, all those things, anger, depressiveness, sorrow, whatever, deep grief, whatever it is, having lost hope, whatever it is. So one of my jobs is to travel between the worlds as a medium, an intuitive, a psychic, a channel, and help you put words to what's wrong, help you put words to what these things are. So as far as like resources to explore how I do this, I do have a 20-minute reading option, a pre-recorded reading, where Pluto's, about half the reading. Uh, Pluto, South Node ruler by sign, and also North Node. So there's that. There's a Soul's Journey trilogy of books. There's also the Pluto Generations course. It's an online course. You do it at your own pace. But when I tell the Pluto story, I put words to it, to something you've always known about yourself, but maybe haven't known how to face, how to bring light to, how to accept. And that's what the Pluto Healing Intensive is all about, is putting words to things without judgment and shame and letting things come out. So in this space of, like, it costs a lot of energy to keep out of consciousness what hurts. Like to keep anything out of consciousness. I take that directly from my teacher, Steve Forrest. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to essentially bottle up anything related to Pluto. We feel even shame and guilt because of our feelings, right? So it's not even just feelings of shame. It's also feeling guilty because we have shame, and shame because we have guilt. So we have this whole experience of being bottled up when it comes to Pluto. So why does Pluto work matter? Because you're engineering your entire life around trying to avoid pain, fear, guilt, whatever. So if you're limiting yourself and you're not embracing your options, you're not expressing yourself, then you're not in touch with the deepest kind of self-confidence that your soul is rooting for you to develop. Your Pluto placement says what your soul intends you learn to become strong in the face of. How can you bring light and love and acceptance to shadow? So why bother doing Pluto work? Why is it so important? Do you like feeling that life isn't worth living? Of course you don't. Do you like feeling that you can't or shouldn't make your own choices? Of course you don't like it. Like, we could do a whole long list of things. You don't like any of it. None of it feels good. The residues of disempowerment. Now, as Pluto represents the unconscious, and in my work, the unconscious, and the model of soul that I work with, memories from many lifetimes are stored in your unconscious, as in your unconscious realm, your unconscious layers have access to all these other lifetimes. So you have to do it to make life feel meaningful, and then fear will come up. Fear is a huge one with Pluto. Well, you might need to assert something in your world, right? From the unconscious, a part of self from another life. So a past life part, I typically say an other life part, like, because it's all happening in real time from your soul's perspective. And in your emotional self, it's all happening in real time. So you say, I have to assert this. Well, this person from another life associated with your soul is, having negative repercussions from having asserted something. Maybe that person says, oh, I made a mistake. I did it wrong. I shouldn't have done that because all this pain or tragedy or something terrible, some punishment happened, or I made this mistake and everything was terrible. Well, that bit of consciousness, that kind of bubble of pain and regret and whatever, is in your unconscious and will bubble up because it resonates with you saying, I have to assert myself. Essentially, a part of self says, I can't. No, stop. Stop the presses. Slam on the brakes. So then you feel, essentially, the warning from the other life part of self. So what has happened on the other timeline has happened. But as this stuff exists within your own unconscious and then comes up, it feels like it's happening in real time. This is how we get phobias. And when we have fearful or painful reactions out of all proportion to what's happening in front of us. Like somebody says, hey, we should take a trip together. Let's go to California. And part of you is afraid of flying, but you didn't know it. And suddenly, this thing comes up. It's like in real time. So it matters to do Pluto work so that you can, as an individual, identify what's going on in your unconscious. Now, you won't know all the content all the time, but you can put words to it. Pluto's in the second house, money, possessions, how you use your time, how well you did with a skill, if you had the right skill, if you had the right tool. Pluto in the 4th house, belonging, connection, family. Pluto in the 5th house, egoic expression, seeking pleasure, playfulness, creativity, art. Pluto in the 8th house, trust, vulnerability, sexuality, intimacy, bonded, deep bonded sexuality. Pluto in the 10th house, I acted ambitiously. Pluto in the 11th house, I stood up for a revolutionary cause because I want my future and my children's future and my world to look different in 20 years. So all the way around the wheel, we can put, and this is what I do in the sound bites and also all the readings I do when Pluto comes up. And then you find which ones, I might give you 6 or 10 things, and then you find which one resonates for you. But when you find that, when you realize you have all those things, because again, we put words to it, we start to make the unconscious conscious. That's the point of doing Pluto work. So you are not bottled up or wound up. You are not just 300 rubber bands wrapped around each other, taut, trying to hold everything together because you're afraid of some emotion coming out that's unattractive. Most Plutonian emotions are unattractive. Because when you process the garbage and you get to the part that is not unattractive, you don't notice it. It's confidence. It's courage. It's self-trust. It's, willingness to go through something challenging, something difficult. These are the positive kind of Plutonian emotions. So we want to put words to things and work through things so we can be free of the blocks in the unconscious that hold us back or that we use to hold ourselves back. Because we keep negative emotions, the really intense ones, out. We do that because we don't want to be taken over by them. So, if I could give you one little piece of advice, again, whatever your house, sign, aspects, retrograde, or direct status of Pluto is in your own chart, don't judge what you feel and refuse to judge what you fear because part of you is speaking. Now, that's kind of the individual thing. Why do Pluto work? Well, for you as a student of astrology, as a practitioner, why engage in more Pluto work? Because then you can help people understand why they do what they do. If you help people understand that most of us spend a lot of our energy trying to keep at bay guilt, shame, anger, depressiveness, sorrow, the worst grief, whatever, rage, sense of hopelessness, whatever, sense of betrayal. We keep those things out. If you help other people understand that too, you're helping change the world. The more conscious we become of our shadows with courage and a refusal to judge, the more love and light we bring. I think some years ago I might have heard a statement like that and said, oh, come on. Like new agey, well, the more light we can bring, the better. Part of me has a little like skepticism of like new agey stuff. It sounds like head in the clouds, pie in the sky, wishing for the best. But I can tell you after facing some of my own Plutonian shadow stuff with acceptance, those energies with those parts of me, instead of me holding their anger or frustration or negativity at bay, those become assets and I feel stronger. So yes, the more when it comes to Pluto, the more light you bring to shadow and integrate and accept and let go of fears of what you might do. That's a huge part of what Pluto's fears are about. What might happen to me, what I might do. When you move through that process, you have access to a lot more strength. And I think of Pluto as an internal atomic energy generator. Pluto's really small, right? Relative to the other planets in our solar system. It was demoted 13 years ago to the status of dwarf planet because of its mass relative to other planets, right? When Eris was discovered, right? Eris creating strife and discord in the astronomers' view of the solar system or definition of what a planet is. And what is an acceptable planet. Pluto's small, so you think of this like a tremendous power that may be contained within an atom. And when you are in a light-giving place with it, you unleash this sense of confidence and strength, which is Plutonian power. And the other way to think of this is, whether about you or you using such information with others, you when you learn what your buttons are, what the fears, pain, guilt, shame, etc. When you learn what those buttons are, you put words to it, and you begin the process of facing the shadows and learning to integrate these parts of you you're afraid might make you a terrible person, because that's what happens with Pluto stuff. We fear it. We fear becoming a monster. Then other people can't push your buttons. You have more peace once you've done shadow work, is another way to think of it. So this is why to do Pluto work. And the last thing I'll say is, I was going to say I feel or I believe, but that's not true. I know deeply, somewhere deep inside me, I know that when we get beyond personality, and I'm mixing up all these words today, quirks and foibles, personalities, preferences, when we get past kind of like elements and expressions of personality, we all do want to help each other. We all know that we're connected. Because when we get beyond the, parameters or limitations of personality, we get closer to the wisdom of soul, which is devoted to all the other souls. We're all here in this conspiracy of love together, pushing each other into our lessons to learn to go from pain and fear into love. So another way of looking at Pluto, which I really find really beautiful, is that when you face your own fears and you own the strength of Pluto, you can become an agent of change in a loving way. So you can carry Pluto with you with the spirit of compassion for all other people who may sometimes be stuck in their fears or doubts or whatever, their guilt and shame. And you carry Plutonian energy in a positive way, and that helps everybody. If you don't fear all the time, then you have more space to carry love. You're more willing to do that, and that's your natural state as a soul living human experience. So check out the Pluto Generations Course, check out the Soul's Journey Soundbites, and the Soul's Journey trilogy of books, which centers on Pluto quite a lot. And also the Pluto Healing Intensive, 4 days, September 26th through 29th, 2019 in Sedona, Arizona. Right now, as of June 4th, 2019, there are 3 spots of the 6 that are open. And I'm happy to welcome you to Sedona and introduce you to the Ascended Master Jehudi and also Archangel Metatron. And introduce you to a process to unearth and work through whatever shadow material has been holding you back. Thanks for your time and energy, and check all that out at ttjacobs.com. Take care.